speaking of mountain men, shall we bring in the guest?
Let's do it, baby.
Are y'all ready for the next comedian?
Oh, gosh.
Nobody knows the line? Damn, is he funny? Nobody?
Damn, is he funny?
He sure is. Eric Johnston. What's going on, brother? How are you?
Can you guys hear me? Is this working?
100%.
Okay,
yeah, we
good.
got you.
I was doing the test backstage, and I was getting jack shit out of this thing. So I was like, I hope once they bring me on, I'm going to be good. They can hear me. And I was wondering if we could swear on this thing. And then I heard you guys fucking going for it when I came on the air. So I was like, let's go. Let's party, boys.
Backstage. Where the fuck are you?
Yeah. The backstage of the backstage of this StreamYard. Like I was doing my microphone test, and I wasn't getting anything on my my levels, so I was a little concerned.
Now you're aces, baby.
He does bring up a good point. Where are you? You look like you're in kind of like a Bond villain summer house. Where the fuck are you?
Well, no, it's funny. My studio. I have a home studio, and I'm soundproofing the ceiling right now. So my studio is a complete mess. So I moved into my kitchen, and my wife and I just bought this house in Hamilton, Ontario, and it's like the 70s cocaine mafia house of my dreams. There's mirrors everywhere to do coke off, I guess. But there's granite and mirrors and all kinds of stuff. We're still in the process of renovating. So
is there a mirror on the ceiling?
There was one in the bedroom, but we took it out. You know what I mean?
Why?
It was. I don't know how many people used the mirror before we got there, so it felt weird. It wasn't just. I was afraid it wasn't going to just be our reflection looking back at us. This house is built in 1972, so who knows what'll happen?
Imagine doing coke on like your wife's shoulders. Off the ceiling.
Jesus. Well, see, everybody thinks that the mirror on the ceiling is like awesome and stuff until you realize like
how disgusting you are.
Yeah. You beat me to it, KJ.
I see enough of myself already, so.
My God, my poor wife, if she had to look up and see my fucking hairy back and ass, my God. Ugh, like I'm being raped by Sasquatch. Get the fuck out of here. Like, what are you doing on me? Do I know you?
Who's
Eric, forgive me for not doing my due diligence, but how old are you, pal?
I'm 33, born in 1990. And I've been in show business since I was 6 years old, so I look a lot older. I've been around a long time, but yeah, 33.
Yeah, man. So, real quick, just I'll get this out of the way real quick. We'll talk about wrestling. We'll talk about your lineage and all that stuff. But I've been a stand-up comedian for a while too now, so I really appreciate that you're on this show, and I want to talk to you about stand-up comedy.
For sure.
Like, what do you get out of stand-up comedy that makes you continue wanting to do it?
Money.
That's the element KJG never got.
I made some money back in my day.
Dude, listen, I've been doing it for 13 years professionally across North America, and I've had a hell of a run so far. And, I'm just coming now. Like, I feels like my career's just starting at 13 years in. And I've done some cool shit. I performed at the Laugh Factory. I'm a past comedian at the Laugh Factory in Chicago. I'm a past comedian at Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle in Detroit, which is huge. I've performed at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles a couple times. I've opened for Russell Peters there. I've opened for Sebastian Maniscalco, which I know is very big in the Jersey area, New York's tri-state area.
Yeah, he's
Sebastian.
all right.
Yeah. I mean, when he first came out, everyone loved him, and now people are starting to turn on the poor guy. But yeah, I've had a hell of a run, and I feel like, again, I'm just getting started. So I truly do love it. Like, I just flew to Calgary for a one-nighter. Like, I flew in, literally got to the airport, limo to the hotel. The show was at the hotel. It was a casino resort. Did the show, got on a plane, flew home. I felt like I was part of the fucking Hart family. Like, I was just flying in and out of Calgary. But yeah, I do. I love it. And I make a living, now in show business, and especially in stand-up. It's tough to make a living. Just like wrestling, you know what I mean? We can all talk about that. And but I'm at a point now whereas it's almost like I've been, I'm working in like the trades, or I'm, making good money, but I get to, watch the fucking Price is Right every day. So life is good. It's really good.
Sick day home from school.
That's it. Every day I'm having flat ginger ale and soda crackers and watching the Price is Right. It's sick.
You ever have a chance to work in New York yet, or no?
Yeah, so I've been down, done some shows. I actually this Friday I'm going to be at the Dojo of Comedy in Morris Plains.
That's
New
Morristown.
Jersey.
Yeah, that's right.
Morristown. So yeah, I've headlined there a couple times. I've gone into the city a couple times. It's pretty dog eat dog. obviously in the city. I went down to the cellar and just by myself thinking, you know what, I'll probably know somebody. And sure enough, I ran into a bunch of comics, and I'm really good friends with Ryan Long, who works the cellar a lot, and Matt Richardson, and a bunch of guys. God. And so I got asked to sit at the comics only table at the cellar, at the
nice.
at the whatever, and I was like, "Holy shit!"
That's tough to do, man.
Yeah, I was like, "Am I allowed to sit here?" I've seen crashing. I don't think I'm supposed to sit at this table, like, So it's I go into the city, and I've done lots of stuff upstate New York, Poughkeepsie, and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But Los Angeles and Chicago has been excellent to me. I headlined at the House of Blues in Chicago, and I'm doing, whenever I go into Chicago, I'm doing 5 or 8 shows at the Laugh Factory and the Comedy Bar and stuff like that. So if I go into Chicago, I don't leave town without doing at least 15 shows.
So you're doing the dojo this Friday or next?
This Friday, December
Friday
15th. It's up in the air right now. I haven't talked to Mike at the dojo.
yeah. So I know those guys, right?
Yeah.
You should be okay, I think. So,
yeah, well, so this is, I'll tell you. So last time I was on the show sold out. But the day I got to New Jersey, it had sold like 8 tickets. And by the time I was like, well, it's okay. I'm kind of famous in Canada, but I don't really have a market in New Jersey yet. But then by the time the show went up, there was like 85 people there. And they're all paid. Like I thought, he papered the room. He goes, no, people just bought tickets today. I went, okay. So we did. The show was sold out, and I sold a bunch of merch, and some local comics opened, and I'm friends.
It's a nice room too, by the way.
It is a good room. I was the one who told him to paint it black because it was white before, and I was like, dude, this is a great hall. It's like we're in a banquet hall, but you got to paint these walls black. He's like, you think? And then the next time I came back, the walls were black. So there you go.
That's so true. He's not wrong at all.
But yeah, it's been a journey, man, and I love every second of it.
So how would you correlate? I ask a lot, I've asked a lot of guys that like Mick Foley, like guys that have dabbled in not dabbled. I'm not saying that you dabbled, but you know what I mean, comedy and wrestling. What is the biggest correlation between the two, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you can say that Mick dabbled in stand-up. I opened for him on his Canadian tour. Same with Jake. Ted DiBiase came through. I worked with Jake on 3 separate times. One was good, and 2 were a little rough. But and then I get asked to host all these like Legends of Wrestling panels at like Niagara Falls Comic Con and Hamilton Comic Con, and then they'll bring in like Sting and Bret Hart and whatever, and I'm just moderating because I'm just a comedian who's the son and grandson of professional wrestlers, right? So there is a connection there. I'm writing a book right now. It's called Run with the Bull: 3 Generations of Sports and Entertainment. And the idea is like, I said in the book, for me it's like I'm a professional wrestler. I'm just not taking any of the bumps. Like I'm still on the road. There's still the great stories. I'm on the road all the time. There's comics I work with that are crazy, and the crazy stories and stuff like that. I'm still putting myself out there like my dad did, and my dad was, affectionately a jobber. Had some great runs and stuff. Got really big at international wrestling in Montreal with Dino Bravo, and had some big TV coverage there. He was in Starrcade 90, which was a whole fucking botch fest we can talk about a little bit. But my dad had some big runs, but he was affectionately, a jobber across the world, really. Went out to Japan and lived in Trinidad and all that kind of stuff. And I just really, I really attribute that road, that hustle. Like my there's a story in the book where my grandpa Bull drove to Seattle from Hamilton, which is like driving from Buffalo to Seattle. And he just drove out for a bunch of runs, lost like 3 times in a row, just got in the car, drove home. Like that's the way they just lived. So when I was, at the end of my last tour, my last show ended in Nelson, British Columbia, which is directly above Montana. And I drove home straight from the show, from fucking Montana, basically, to Hamilton, which is, again, like to Buffalo. So, that's the road life that I love. I'm a wheel man, you know what I mean? I can attribute all that. And then just, like, the carny lifestyle, that side talk lifestyle. There's some phrasing, there's some stuff that only comics, like phrases that only comics use, that, you know, similar to wrestlers only use. So there's a lot of kind of parallels, which I really enjoy. I really love the fact that I can kind of make those connections.
What would you say is like, so we've had like comics on the show in the past. Like we've had like Mark Norman. I'm sure you're familiar with
great.
Mark
Yeah, of
Norman,
course. Yeah, Mark's
Seth
great.
Morrell, a lot of guys. And like I always say, like when wrestling and comedy kind of intertwine, there's always like something that like you want to know. Like, would you rather them be silent or would you rather them like boo you? Like, because at least if they boo you, you kind of know they're paying attention. But like, or would you rather them be like completely deadpan silent? Like, what would you prefer? Would you prefer the heckling? Would you prefer the booing? Or would you prefer them just to like sit on their hands?
Well, I mean, both suck dick. So you're really giving me a would you rather get kicked in the nuts or kicked in the forehead? I don't know. They both are not good. But you know, I have no problem as the wrestlers like to call, and I like to call, saying it's a little stiff out there. Right. My biggest thing that I love is turning an audience. You know, when I'm out on the road at a place I've never been, and sometimes I'm selling out these shows, not that the audience knows who I am, it's just I'm the only thing happening in that town. I kind of take an indie promoter's approach. It's easy to sell out when you're the only thing happening in town. But you know, they come in a little stiff, and I work them, and I break them, and by the end they're cheering, right? And I don't deal with a lot of hecklers. I think my style doesn't allow for that. I'm very quick moving. I'm a storyteller. You know, kind of like a Dane Cook or like a Sebastian Maniscalco. I'm very high energy animated. By the time anyone could have a moment to be like, hey, wait a minute, I'm already on to another bit.
So I'm so sorry to cut you off, but you just made a great point right there, where like your cadence is so fast, where you don't even give them a chance to make it a wrestling reference to do the what, like you don't give them that chance. Like,
sure,
that's incredible that you brought that up, and I just want to say that's amazing on your part.
Man, and here's the thing. There's a whole we can get into this. Comics are becoming famous because of content on TikTok and Instagram, i.e. Matt Rife bombing for an hour in his newest Netflix special. He's famous for his crowd work, and I think he made millions of dollars doing crowd work. Then he had the balls to be like, I'm not just a crowd work guy. Then he went up on stage and bombed for an hour on Netflix and did a mic drop. So, not good. But what this has created a culture of comedians on this quest for content. They are constantly bringing cameras to the shows and filming everything. Now, comedians don't want to burn their material. They don't want to put an entire joke or bit online because then they can't do it live because people saw it on the internet. So the only thing that they're putting up is crowd work or heckling moments or fucking an interrupt. You'll never believe what someone said to me. Like, there's a lot of comics who are famous right now because of how they responded to a heckler on TikTok. Which is, okay, great. The industry's moving that way. But what it's creating is audiences are going, oh, I'm also part of this show.
Right.
Which means I should be yelling at these comics. And I'm going, no. This is a fucking show. This is a performance. I don't need any of you. I've been doing this full time for 13 years. You're an alcoholic mechanic. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But I mean, but you know what I mean? I don't need you to be part of the show. And I let the audience know. And I throw people out. If someone tries to injure, I go, get out. I'm like a school teacher. I'm like, I don't have time for this. Get the fuck out. Yeah. And I'll have security kick them out. I just boot them. I don't give a fuck. Keep the show moving. It's that's it. So yeah.
Nice.
Have you ever ripped into a heckler?
Yeah, I mean a little. Like I have some candid, some pre things that I'll say to people. Like, I called someone I said there was a bunch of guys like Southern looking guys at my show on the weekend, and they were not really heckling. But they were just kind of disruptive, and I'm like, "Hey, the backgrounds from Yellowstone, shut the fuck up!" And then everyone killed, like whatever. It's easy to make fun of what they look like or whatever, right. But I just keep it moving. I don't have time out there. I put it this way: I sell a lot of interruptions. I just keep moving because I'm not gonna ruin the show for the other 400 people out there because one drunk idiot just thinks. Because here's the thing, a lot of hecklers are guys who wish they did comedy. because they go, I wish I could be part of this show. I don't have the balls to do an open mic and do it for 13 years on the road like this guy. So I want my moment to come in and have my moment. But it usually doesn't go well for them because I have all the power, I have all the charisma, and I have a fucking microphone. So no matter what, I'm gonna win over all of you.
Hey, I can do what you do. I can tell jokes too, funny man.
Tony, you have no idea how obnoxious that is. Like,
Yeah.
it's the worst thing ever.
Oh, I can
Like,
imagine. I could imagine.
Yeah, it's crazy. And people often go, like, I thought I want to do comedy. I go, you should do it. I go, actually, there's an open mic in this town on Wednesday nights. I can introduce you to the guy. You can go up next week. And they go, oh, no. I could never. Yeah, get the fuck out of here.
That's what a lot of comics don't understand, or people that think that they can do it. Like, if you want to do it, go to the open mics. Go to the open mics.
Yeah, go.
Like,
everyone else is bombing. You could be one of them.
like 13 years. I'm 12 years, 13 years in it as well. Not clearly not as great as you, obviously, but I've had my moments, right?
Sure.
It's absolutely like when you're at the highest of highs, like you realize that you did open mics at the pizzeria for dude, 10 years. Or
that's how I created my style, because every show was a fucking hostage situation. It was like people there for wing night and to watch the hockey game and the football game.
Yeah.
And then they're like, all right, at 8 o'clock, we're doing open mic comedy. And then these fucking guys go up and they have to pay attention to me. So that's how when I was losing them, I created this very abrasive, high energy, quick moving style, very loud, very boisterous, very confident. That was all coming out of not wanting to bomb at the open mic, because I would watch these fucking alt comics go up one after the other.
Oh God, slow, so weird,
so my cat eats cat grass, and people are like, shut the fuck up, the fucking Bills are playing, like, you know what I mean, like, so I was just like, there's a thing I still do on stage when I come on, and I still do it 13 years in. When I walk on stage, I go, how you guys doing? Good? Yeah? Huh? How you doing? Well, fucking all right. And that came from just making everyone have to start paying attention to me. And then I do a couple self-deprecation shit. I look like the manager of a failing strip club. I look like John Candy's gay son. All this kind of shit.
Fucking nailed that.
Yeah, they're calling me the son of Buck. Anyway, so I do a couple of that. So they go, oh, this guy knows, he is self-aware. Okay, maybe I'll listen to his bits. And then they're in. So, but my show now is an hour and a half on the road.
Good for
so
you. That's
I'm going
awesome,
up
man.
I'm going up and doing 90 minutes clean myself. So, you know, it's I've created and built obviously over this long career, and it's, you know, it's only up from here, baby.
Listen, there's nothing makes me happier than hearing like comedians like tell like real stories and good stories, and it's just like, it's just so. You mentioned about like the wings and like doing like the stuff at the open bar, and we'll get to wrestling at some point. I promise.
I was gonna say, maybe Mr. T, Mr. HK will have a chance to talk too.
Yeah, it's always unique when I get to talk to like another comedian. So like,
sure.
it makes me happy. So like, I always say this to other people, like when they do like stand-up comedy, like, and when promoters run their shows, it's like serve the food first, and then do the show. Because you're never going to compete with food. Like, you can't compete with food. No matter how aggressive and how funny you are, you're never going to compete with food.
Yeah. Well, you could be Dave Chappelle. If you're sitting there and fucking a plate of pasta goes in front of you, people's head goes, whoop, and they're gone.
Yeah.
You know, so I always, like, I'm in corporate season right now. So, like, from mid-November to mid-January, I'm just doing Christmas parties. I make a big part of my yearly salary doing that. You sell your soul a little bit, because it's like, I did one for like $2,500 the other night, and it was awful. Nice. But it paid $2,500. I don't give a shit. I went up, I did the time. They gave me a meal, and I left. And I didn't get a thank you. I didn't get an email. There was no change. They sent me the money e-transfer, and I had never heard, because what happened is the boss loves stand-up comedy. Right. And he saw me somewhere and then went to my website, and I built out this whole thing on my website. It's like a jot form. So if you want to book me at ericjohnstonwho.com, you go to my boom, there it is. You go to my website and you can fill it out. What are you looking for? I'm looking for a stand-up comic or a funny MC. Okay, Click that. Stand-up comic. Where's the event? When is the event? How many people are going to be there? What are your budgets? So now I'm doing all of my lead generation already on my website. So then it comes to me as a fully functional lead. So then I just answer all the questions, give them a quote, and I do the show. So this guy goes to my website, fills it out. My minimum on my website is $1,500. He just put, what's your budget? $2,500. I went, okay, check. That one works for me. So anyways, he booked it. He was using it as a surprise for his staff for a wealth management company. Great. Their Christmas party, hired entertainment, a comedian to do an hour. From the time that he booked me to when the show happened, 3 days before, the guy got COVID. And he didn't come to his own Christmas party. So he didn't tell anybody. So I show up the surprise to fucking perform at this Christmas party. He told like the one controller girl, like lead assistant, that I was coming. But that was it. They just said, hey, I got a surprise coming. Just have a microphone and a stage and a spotlight for him, and then you're good. So then I walked in. The girl didn't know who I was. I explained what was going on. She's like, oh, comedy? And I go, yeah. She goes, did Frank book this? I went, yeah, Frank booked it. She goes, oh, yeah, he's got COVID. He's not here. And I was like, oh, great. So do you guys still want me to go on? She's like, I guess. And I was like, all right. So she introduced me. She just read my bio word for word, which is the worst kind of intro you can get.
Yep.
She's going like, no one packs a punch like Eric Johnston. Eric has performed blah, 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 blah. From stories about his professional wrestling father to growing up in Hamilton. He's appeared on this. It's a fucking 3-paragraph bio. So she just reads it. No one is listening or paying attention or gives a shit. And she just goes, Eric Johnston. And that's it. So then I walk up and I was like, first bit, I'm like, okay. Second bit, oh, I'm losing them. Third bit, oh, they're back a little bit. Fourth bit, gone. And then I was supposed to do an hour. I think I did 38 minutes. I fucking literally walked off the stage and out the door. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't say anything. And it reminded me of my grandfather. My grandfather was a jobber too. He was the original bull out of Hamilton, Bull Johnson. And he used to pull up and he would park the car. He would leave the car running. He'd be wearing his trunks and his boots already. He'd have his track pants and a t-shirt on. He'd walk into the ring. He'd take his shit off. He'd walk into the ring. He'd work for like 5 minutes. He'd get pinned 1, 2, 3. He'd walk in the back, get paid, and leave immediately. And I was like, as I was walking off that stage and out the door, I felt like, oh my God, my grandpa Bull could see me now, getting the fuck out of here. But he probably got paid $25 and I got paid $2,500, different time. But yeah, same idea. So yeah, it's funny. It's a funny life I have.
Somebody ask a wrestling question.
Yes, please go ahead.
I was gonna say, did you ever look into wrestling, or was it always kind of comedy was kind of always your goal?
Yeah, well, I mean, I grew up in a very funny house, so comedy was king. My dad was also an actor, and he was on a TV show called Bizarre in the 1970s with John Biner, and it was the first show that ever had Super Dave Osborne on it. Oh. So it was huge. So I grew up in a comedy house. You know, if you weren't funny, you were getting interrupted, and someone else was going to tell a better story than you. That's just how it was. So if you needed to learn how to be quick and tight and funny, or someone will interrupt, including like my grandmother, my sister, my mom, everyone was funny. I watched the wrestling industry chew my dad up and spit him out, so to speak. You know what I mean? And I also watched what it did to his body. Like the guy died at 49. And which is obviously crazy. Now that I'm 33, I look at 49 and I'm like, that's not far at all away. Holy shit. You know, my dad, he was in an industrial accident which severed his liver in half in the early 90s. And he was also an alcoholic because he was a professional wrestler. So an alcoholic with half a liver doesn't usually live a long life. But when he was 48, before all of his kind of liver issues really came to a head when he died when he was 49. He moved around like a 65-year-old man. Mm-hmm. He'd broken most bones in his body and whatever. And I knew that my dad wanted me to get in show business, but I don't think it was wrestling. You know, I was only 13 when he died, so we never had the don't join the business talk. But I could sense he was always pushing me to do like theater and dance and acting and stuff like that. He wanted me to be a star like him, but I don't think he wanted that life for me. But I have had an itch inside of me my entire life. Anytime I'm close to a wrestling ring, my body tingles. I've been involved in a couple projects where I've gotten into the ring. I've worked with Santino Marella on some stuff. He's got the Battle Arts Academy in Mississauga, Ontario, and one of my really, really good friends is RJ City.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, so RJ and I, we did a TV show on YTV together called Splat-A-Lot. It was like a medieval game show for kids. You can look it up. And my character replaced his character on the show. And I used to go to a lot of his wrestling matches. I talk to RJ every day. He's in my book. Like he's one of my best friends who I see once every 3 to 5 years, like in person. But as you guys know, and as everyone watching knows, he's done really well. With
one of the most super charismatic guys you'll ever find.
Sure, and he's one of the best professional wrestlers that no one's ever seen wrestle. That's his whole gimmick, though. He's the wrestler that doesn't wrestle, 100%. Right? And he was smart, though, because he saw the guys around him just getting beat up, and he went, I'm going to go a different route on this. And him and I kind of talked about it, and I thought, like, I wrote an idea for either a documentary series or a movie or whatever it would turn into, and the pitch was called Becoming Bullwhip, and the idea of it was me, Eric Johnston, 33-year-old, somewhat professional or somewhat successful, Canadian stand-up comic, saying, "Hey, it's finally time to follow in my family footsteps and become a professional wrestler." And go through the train at Battle Arts Academy, but also train at Hamilton Pro Wrestling. My friend Rip Impact was going to train me as well, and I was going to have like the sweaty gym training and the professional training. And RJ was going to kind of be my mentor, breaking into the business and building character and shaving your body and getting spray tans and all that whole thing. And I pitched it around, and it got pretty far. So I was on an episode of Tales from the Territories on Vice, and in that day, they knew who I was, or I told them who I was, but they knew who my dad was. My dad's best friend was Johnny Canine, Bruiser Bedlam, who was also appeared on an episode of Dark Side of the Ring, is the biker who blew up the police station. He was my dad's best friend. Like, he was a pallbearer at my dad's fucking funeral. He had to get furloughed from prison to appear at my dad's funeral. The guy had just blown up a police station and was in jail for killing 2 people, and they're like, we got to let him out for Bullwhip's funeral. So I got kind of close with the production team at Vice over for Tales from the Territory and Dark Side of the Ring, and there was some talk about it going, and then Vice is going bankrupt, so that's why I didn't go. And then CBC up here, obviously in Canada, is the Canadian Broadcasting Channel, and they're huge, obviously, in Canada, and they have mandates, and it's all about an inclusionary effort. So like they really focus on BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, people of color, or LGBT plus, whatever. So that's kind of their mandate for creating those cultural stories, which I agree with. I think they should appear, right? But anyways, the pitch got all the way up to like basically the president of broadcasting at CBC and was like, we love this project. We love Eric. We're familiar with his work. We're familiar with him doing stand-up. Unfortunately, Eric does not create enough cultural conversation for the CBC, which directly translates to he's too white to have his own show on the CBC. So I went, fuck, well, I can't do anything about that. I can't, unless I get a couple more spray tans, there's not much I can do here. So, and then I pitched it to Netflix, and Netflix ate it up too. And they said, we love it. They go, unfortunately, Eric is not famous enough to carry the show on his own. And David Arquette had just released You Cannot Kill David Arquette. So, and they're like, hey, we already kind of have a project just like this. And I went, okay. I said, so what do you want me to do? They said, I would suggest you go get famous. Because once you're famous, this was a real conversation I had. I would suggest you go get famous, because once you're famous, this project's going to be a lot easier to produce. And I went, okay, I'll just go get famous then. And I mean, I'm doing an okay job, but Jesus Christ, I got to keep going here. I got to sell out the dojo on Friday night. So,
yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned the dojo, because I'm seeing you sandwiched in between appearances by Rich Voss and KP Burke. I think you're doing all right for yourself.
I'm doing
man.
all right. Yeah, Rich Voss and Mark Norman's always down there, and
Yep.
Dude, it's a great club, and I love being there. And the team over there, Mike, is great, and he always feeds you well and waters you well. And I love coming down there, and just he's probably one of the best club owners I've ever worked for. So I'm excited to get back down there. So yeah.
I think I'm gonna swing by that show actually. So,
Yeah, if I'm free this weekend, I think I'm gonna take a ride down there too. That's Sleepy Ryan's haunt.
So
Ryan Arthur?
all right, so he doesn't know that. So
All right, well.
one of our buddies is the sound guy for the
Great.
the dojo the at Tiff's, right? It's Tiffany. It's Tiff's.
Tiff's
Yeah.
Steakhouse or whatever. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah. It's a great place. Again, great venue, great room.
It was funny when I booked it. Nicky Petito, you know Nicky Petito, the Tony
I do know
Soprano
Nicky
guy.
Petito,
Yeah, so he's an interesting cat. I like him. I mean, I could see why he fights with everybody.
Fair enough.
I could see that. But so, anyways, he booked me an entire run in New Jersey. Like literally, it was like 8 shows, and it was like a fucking spaghetti place, and like a place directly across the street from where the New Jersey Devils play, and like all this kind of shit. And then I go, it's like 2 weeks out before the show, like before the run, and I checking in with him. How are ticket sales? He goes, "Don't worry, Eric, I'm on top of it, whatever." And I go, okay, cool. Let me know because I'm on door splits. I'm not on guarantees, so I only make as much money tickets as I sell, right? Which
Right.
I do in Canada, no problem. I get 80% of every door I walk into. It usually leads to a couple $1,000s a night.
Right.
In the States, I can't make that call. I don't know anybody. I'm just trying to break in down there.
You got to rely on the promoter, just like wrestling. You got to rely on them.
Exactly. So I go, "You're the promoter," and he goes, "I talk to everybody. Everyone's fucking douchebags. I told them all to go fuck themselves, and I'm quitting comedy." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm coming to New Jersey next week. The fucking flight's paid for." Like, so I ended up just doing the dojo last time. But that's fine because my brother-in-law lives in Poughkeepsie, so I went up and saw him. I went into the city for a bit, so I made it work. But yeah, there are definitely some interesting characters in your scene down there in New Jersey. I'll
Yo,
tell
the
you
New
that.
Jersey comedy community is buck wild. bro.
I made the logo for the Comedy Den or whatever in Newark.
So that's when you said you were going to perform across from the Devils. I was wondering what you were talking about, and I guess it's that, right? The Comedy Den.
What's it called? The Comedy Den or the Devil's Den Comedy Night or something? It's like
Yeah,
their
I know what
logo
you're talking
is
about,
two
but I don't know
horns.
for sure.
I
Yeah.
made it on Canva for the guy because I showed up to the club and there was no logo or sign or anything. And I go, "What is this, a comedy club?" He goes, "Yeah, we do it in the basement. I don't really have any logos or anything yet." I go, "Hold on." I just opened up Canva and just made him a logo. I said, "Okay, just use this from now on." And he's used it ever since. It was like this is before the pandemic. So like, Jesus Christ, I'm all building comedy clubs down in New Jersey.
In
They're
New
just going
Jersey
down.
from freaking Hamilton, Ontario.
In Newark, no less.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, just want to show you this. By the way, behind me, big Canada guy.
Yeah, I saw the Canadian flag. I was going to ask him, like, I thought you guys were all in New Jersey, but I guess you are. You're just a big Canada guy.
I
or
just
whatever.
love Canada. I love it.
Yeah.
Minnesota guy over here.
Oh, no shit. I love Minnesota. I've
Great
been there
place.
a couple times.
Acme.
I've never been to Acme. No. But I will. Hey, make it happen. I'll. Is
Great
there a
spot.
club? Is there a club in town? Let me know.
Oh yeah, of course, of course.
Next time I'm doing Chicago, I'll just do the horseshoe and go up and go your way.
So Eric, we don't want to keep you too much longer, but real quick, just to let our listeners know, let us know like a lot about you talked about it a little bit, but your dad and the history of professional wrestling, Hall of Famer, all that stuff. Just give everyone like a refresher course.
Yeah,
if you will,
I mean,
for
listen,
everybody.
I'm not offended if you don't know who my dad was. He was big, like me, very big in Canada, broke into the U.S. market a little bit, was big in Japan. I mean, he was 6'5", so he's huge in Japan. So dang, that one took a sec. Where's the ding? Give me the goddamn ding.
Took me like 3 seconds.
You guys are vaping too much. I don't know if it's fucking nicotine or weed. But no, so I'll tell you, my grandfather was the original Bull Johnson. He also wrestled as the Mongol. This is shoot style. This is 50s, 60s, into the 70s. He worked at a ICW, I believe, or ACW out of Chicago and Boston. He was like the steel belt guy. So they did Hamilton, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Cleveland. He was of that era. Then he worked out in Seattle, worked in Maine, and Boston Garden he wrestled in. So, my grandfather had an amazing career, but again, a jobber. Like the guy, if he wasn't wrestling, he was driving truck and like fucking delivering manure and stuff, like as side jobs. My father did a little bit better than my grandfather. So my father was Bullwhip Johnson or Danny Bull Johnson or Battleship Johnson or Danny Sharp. He worked a couple gimmicks, but his main one was Bullwhip through most of the 90s and late 80s. I would say his biggest runs were in international wrestling out of Montreal. He was part of a tag team called the Long Riders with Cowboy Bill Irwin, who went on to be the Goon in WWE, obviously. Also, my dad worked in Japan with Hulk Hogan and stuff like that. I have an amazing magazine in my house where it's the backwards Japanese magazine going the other direction. And it's a huge picture of Hulk Hogan and you flip over the page and the other side is my dad. So that's cool really cool, man. And my dad worked out at the Olympic Auditorium in Los Angeles. He had a tag team with a Cleveland Brown player who they had a tag team run. And it was an untelevised thing, but it was at the end of the territory. And whatever. I would say that my dad's biggest opportunity, which was also the worst match of his fucking career, was Starrcade 90. And your listeners, and you guys can watch it. I'm okay. I'm at peace with how bad it is. JR rips it apart on a podcast. What happened was they had the Pat O'Connor Memorial Tournament. And it was nations, and representing the nation of Canada was my dad, Bull Johnson. He was a Bull Johnson at that time. And Troy Montour, who was like this native Canadian, barely a wrestler. Like he wrestled a little bit. I don't know how, at the time you had the Hart family, you had Chris Benoit was taken off at this time. This is 1990, right? So all these big Canadians are breaking in. I don't know who. My dad must have saw the promoter fucking kill a hooker or something. He had something on this guy where my dad and Troy Montour got booked Starrcade 90 in fucking in St. Louis. And there was, I don't know, at the time 7,000 people, and it was a huge pay-per-view buy. Anyways. They needed a team to go down to set up the USSR versus the USA because it was still huge heat on the two, right? Now, my dad, professional wrestler, Troy Montour, barely a professional wrestler, but he could work, right? Versus these two Russians who were Olympic-style shoot wrestlers. They didn't know how to work. There was no finish planned. The whole thing is one of the biggest fucking botches, and you guys can feel free to watch it again. I'm okay with it. It does not represent his career, just a moment in his career. My dad's trying to tie up with them, and they don't know how to do it. They go into the corner and they're trying to break, and it's a fucking mess. Then they're doing a body to body suplex. And my dad's smacking the guy's back to let him know he's ready to go over. And this guy's not doing it. So my dad's repeatedly slapping him in the back for the body to body. He's not doing it. Finally, he does it. And he goes over, and it's supposed to be a 2 count. And my dad's supposed to get out, tag somebody in. The match was supposed to go 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It went a minute and a half because the ref was so confused. He didn't even know the finish. So it's 1, 2, and then a 10-second pause. And then the rep just goes, and 3. And then you can see the look on my dad's face in the video, what the fuck just happened? And at that moment, I mean, both teams look bad. I think the Russians went on to, fight, whoever else, USA in the tournament. But my dad was finished, and it really affected his career. It was you were part of this big botch. And I think it really, it wasn't good for him. He went back and he worked the indies throughout the 90s, and ICW came back in the late 90s, and he had a good run on that with Bruiser Bedlam, Johnny Canine, and all those guys coming in. And my dad was part of the guys who helped train Edge and Christian and Val Venus out of Toronto, and then he stopped working in 99. and he died in 2003. So that's the story, and that's the whole lineage. And then I carry that everywhere. I represent my dad everywhere I go. All my my merchandise is called Whipwear, and it's my logo has a bullwhip in it, and everywhere and ever I do it is to represent, my father. I always say that, my father didn't make it in his lifetime, but he's going to make it in mine. And I'm writing the book on him, and I'm writing these pitches and stuff. Like the end of that documentary that I was talking about, my dad's last match ever was May 1st, 1999 at the Hamilton Convention Center. I wanted my first match ever to be May 1st, 2024 at the Hamilton Convention Center. And I want to have this really big moment because Harry D, the referee, who's referee in Impact and a lot of the Toronto things, he's a legendary Canadian referee by the name of Harry D. He reffed that match, my dad's last match, and then it was written into the show that he was gonna ref my first match, 30 years later or whatever it is, 20 years later. So yeah, there's a lot there, and I honor my dad and I honor my grandfather. In this book, who I'm working with Greg Oliver from Slam Wrestling.
Oh, nice.
Greg's been writing. Him and I have been writing this entire book together, and it's going to be done in the new year and available on Amazon worldwide. So that's the story.
Well, we can't wait to listen to that, and I feel like that's a perfect time to wrap it up, a perfect ending point. Thank you very much, Eric, for joining us tonight. Eric Johnston, Eric Johnston Who on Twitter, ericjohnstonwho.com. Book him. He'll be in New Jersey, our neck of the woods, Morristown, New Jersey. Morris Plains, Morristown, adjacent. The Comedy Dojo, 231 Speedwell Avenue, Morris Plains, New Jersey. It's a great venue. It's a great room. You're going to have a great time with Eric. I'm going to be there. I'm committing to it right now, which is something I don't do. I will be there.
Yeah, you'll be there like Joey Diaz is there. Every time Joey Diaz says he's coming down to the fucking dojo, he doesn't show up.
Well, we'll see about that. We'll see. But listen, Eric, it was awesome. I'm sorry that I took a lot of time talking about comedy as opposed to wrestling.
Don't be sorry. I love talking about comedy. I just felt bad for the other guys.
No, you're good, brother. You're good. Listen, man. Listen, when an interview's rolling, you don't want to just jump in. You let it roll, man. Follow him at Eric Johnston Who, by the way. ericjohnstonwho.com is the website. Like Kevin said, TIFFs this weekend, December 15th. Anything you want to let the people know before you get out of here, Eric?
That's it, man. Just come run with the bull. I'm available online. Book me, and I'm trying to break into the States. So if you're listening to this, and even Minnesota, I'm coming your way. I'm going across the road, ericjohnstonwho.com.
Fuck yeah. Book this man. Book this man.
Love it.
A bookable.
Eric, you are welcome back anytime, brother. You want to shoot the shit? You want to talk more wrestling? You want to talk more Starcade 90? Come on back, man. We're glad to have you again.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Have a great night, Eric.
Good, Eric.
See you.